will control the vertical.
Welcome to Anthologic, the TV anthology podcast. I am your host, Mark. Anthologic is a podcast dedicated to exploring the good, the bad, and the odd of horror, science fiction, and the best of mystery suspense anthology shows and series on TV. Join me as we slip through the cracks of reality to approach the extremes of experience, where we can peruse the stories and art of a sinister fairground of strange and wonderful rides. And now we go on to the show that is the focus of this particular episode. Welcome to Anthologic with your host Mark. Today I'll be covering a fairly recent anthology series that's appeared. It appeared on Netflix on Friday the 13th of March 2020 and it's called Bloodride. It's a Norwegian anthology kind of horror series and it uses a premise of it starts with a driver, and people getting on the bus and getting off the bus, and it deals with every person getting off the bus then becomes the focus of the story. It's pretty cool. It's atmospheric when the music starts. The bus driver looks spooky. When you sort of see the inside of the bus, there's kind of sort of a low solo violin playing minor chords kind of thing, and it's very artsy and in the dark and shadowy. It's kind of cool. I like it. It's in the middle of the night. The bus is driving and stuff like that. This series, because it's 6 episodes, and I've only seen the first one, which is the one I'll be talking about, but I understand it's variable, and people kind of like specific episodes, don't like others. There is a general consensus that because it's sticking to a half an hour format pretty much, some of the stories feel a little rushed, and the first one I'll be talking about does indeed suffer because of the length. I think it could have done with another 10 minutes to sort of fill it out properly. However, we'll talk about the pluses. It's the one I watched was Bloodride. It was called Ultimate Sacrifice. The Ultimate Sacrifice. It's the first one on the list. I'm not going to spoil the ending, but I need to talk about some of the plot to sort of detail some of the issues and some of the good and bad about it. So there will be quite a lot of plot spoilers, but not an ending spoiler. So if you're not comfortable with that, go watch it. It's only half an hour and then come back. Now it starts with a couple and a girl getting off the bus, if I remember rightly. Anyway, a couple, an older couple and their oldish daughter arrive in sort of a country town. The wife obviously doesn't like this. The issues seem to be because of money issues, they've had to leave town and move to the country where it's cheaper, and it's inferred that the wife was somehow responsible for these, but she's the one who is moaning about having to live there, and the husband saying things, well, if we save up, we'll be able to go back to town, and she says, how long? Sort of 6 or 7 years, so that sets up this sort of tension. She doesn't like being there, and when she starts to meet the neighbours, she likes it even less. The neighbours are superficially friendly, but they seem a bit odd. And I think this is the contraction in the plot in here doesn't help set up this. The husband doesn't seem to notice what's going on, or the daughter doesn't seem to notice how odd they are. They are odd, but they in a kind of vacuous, friendly way, but they've all got animals. They're all stroking animals. They're all holding animals. Everyone you see is doing something with an animal. And the wife is like, what's with all the animals? And they're sort of saying, it's the country way. But it does feel odd. Which gives it a kind of Rosemary's Baby vibe. You know, the husband feels like he might be in cahoots with them. And that kind of, I felt that the first sort of few minutes. There's something going on with the husband's in on it, but it turns out he isn't. It's just not really aware these people are a bit odd. It is how it is. And that they're kind of fixing up a new house, and all the neighbours invite themselves. It's a weekday. The wife's a bit confused about, well, haven't they got jobs? And goes, maybe that's how they do it in the country. You know, maybe they just all decide to take a day off. And they do, and they have a barbecue and they're sort of preparing things, and they're going about how much they love their animals. And the wife's quite disconcerted, and you kind of sympathise with that, even though she's a bit moany. It just does feel a bit odd, and this gives it a whole Wicker Man vibe. There's a kind of Wicker Man, there's a kind of Pet Cemetery, there's a kind of folk horror vibe to this one that's quite good. However, it's a little rushed, as I said. She's out. The wife then goes out jogging. She sees two of the women do something in the woods talking, and they got a cat, and she actually sees them kill the cat, and she's confused. But they see her, and they're out talk with her happily. They say, "Oh, this used to be a Viking ground. This is a stone. If you kill an animal, you get lucky." And she's immediately interested in this because she doesn't want to live in the country. She wants to get some money to move back. And they do warn her, if you get too greedy, bad things happen. I think those are their actual words, something like that. But she finds a rat in the cellar, and she takes it to them, kills it, and then does a lottery ticket and wins a little bit of money. And then she goes back to them in a fairly abrupt way, saying, I've killed a rat and I've got nothing, like whining again. Again, it needed a little more time. That scene needed to be not so confrontational and whiny. She needed to sort of be a bit less unpleasant. That would have helped a lot. But they explain, the more you love the animal, the more you kill, do something the more you are attached to the animal concerned, the more wealth comes to you. And this then turns her attention to the family dog, which I hadn't mentioned before, but the daughter is very attached to the family dog. Next thing we know, the wife's dragging the dog to the woods. Again, needed a little more setup, needed a little more doubt, needed a little more sort of deliberation with this character. But it was like immediate. It was immediate. She then tops the dog and wins several thousand in a lottery ticket. The townsfolk are well aware what's going on because she's not hiding it. When she goes buys the ticket, she says, I know I'm not supposed to do this too much, but I just need some money. And even that, she doesn't think it's several thousand isn't. She doesn't understand. She thought she loved the dog, and they're saying, "Did you really love it?" And it turns out she did really love the dog. The daughter loved the dog, but it's the mother who thought because it's the family dog, it should do better. Anyway, things keep escalating. Also, I should have mentioned there was a framing device in this where it was like this is all set 5 years earlier to the initial framing device where someone's going to the head of a CEO. And we don't know quite what's going on, but it kind of resolves at the end. Yeah, so this escalated. I liked it. In many ways, there was some good Wicker Man-y folk horror kind of vibe to it, but in some ways it felt rushed. Like I said, another 10 minutes. This character needed to be a bit more sympathetic and needed to show a little more compassion and doubt and sort of moral uncertainty about what she was doing. She just jumped into it, and it kind of ends that way too. So it's hard to like the characters in this. Everyone's a bit weird. The husband seems unaware. The daughter's underdeveloped, and the wife seems a horrible human being because of this sort of abruptness of her sort of her decision making. So it's tough. It's got some problems, but it's actually quite good in many ways as well. I think I'll continue to watch the rest of these. I may watch the whole season and talk about that at some point because there's only 6 and they're only half an hour, so it's not a particularly difficult series to get through. I should mention this was dubbed. I watched the dubbed version and it was okay. The dubbing was fine. It worked. I may try the Norwegian with subtitles on version, see if that feels a little better. Sometimes the dubbing can create a sort of barrier, and there may have been some of that going on, but I can't say I particularly noticed it. It may be what she says in Norwegian actually feels a little more sympathetic and character developing than what she says in the dubbed version. So there may be that. Anyway, it's on Netflix. I would recommend giving it a try yourself. See what you think. It's the sort of thing I'd like to talk about on this show, and I'm glad I watched it, and I will watch more. But I had a few doubts about this particular episode, but I would like to give it more chances, and it's worth a look. Okay then, so I will say bye for now, but I'll leave you with a final question. Is anybody out there?
I'm not.
We now return control of your television set to you until next week at this same time, when the control voice will take you to